Hi everybody, it's Ann Katzif of Ask Design. Welcome. Today's tutorial is how to build a book cover in InDesign. There are several ways to do this. I'll show you my tried and true methods, honed from years of experience working at an educational publishing company called Houghton Mifflin, now known as Cengage Learning. While there, first as a book cover designer and then a cover design manager, I was involved in more than 500 books. We had to assemble and use accurate and flexible templates that contained all of the specifications of our numerous print vendors. So get yourselves ready for the tutorial and we'll start in a few seconds. For each of my examples, I will use the same specifications. The front and back covers will each be 8 inches wide by 10 inches high. The spine will be 1 inch wide by 10 inch high. There will be a 1/8 inch bleed on all the sides. And for the hardcover jacket, we need to include flaps that scoot around the cover. Those will be 2.5 inches wide by 10 inches high. Now for the paperback cover, I'm going to show you a single page template. So basically there are two templates I'm going to show you, the single page and the multi-page. All of the widths will be added together to calculate the page size for the single page template. We'll use guides to delineate the different parts. And again, this is for a paperback cover. The paperback has two covers and a spine, which will be, 8 inches plus 8 inches plus 1 inch for the spine. So that will be 17 inches wide. If you want to do a hardcover book jacket in a single page template, you just add in the flaps, which are 2.5 inches each. So that would be 17 plus 5 inches more for 22 inches wide. But let's stick with the paperback. First, launch InDesign, and then go directly to Preferences. And so let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going down to Units and Increments under the Preferences menu. And I want to be sure my ruler units are inches. It will make things a lot easier when you're constructing the book. You can leave all the other units alone. I like to use points for my stroke. Even if you forget this step to change your measurements to inches, you can always change it during the next step or any time coming up. Let's create the new document. Go to the File menu, New Document. And you'll get the new document screen. I have a bunch of presets that you probably won't have. These are my recent presets. We're just going to go to the Print tab, since this is a print piece. And these are your default options. We'll start with letter, and we'll name it, and let's call it paperback book. Now you could change these measurements, 8 by 10. That would be your first impulse. However, remember, we want to construct the book cover as a single page template. So we've added all of them together. It's actually going to be 17 inches wide. Now, while I'm doing this, watch what happens to the orientation. It's currently profile. It will automatically change to landscape. I don't know if you noticed that, but it did. We can keep it at one page. You don't need facing pages. Your start page can be 1. Your columns can be 1. Margins can be narrower. They can be 0.25 inches. And because the link is active, as soon as I hit the tab key, all of them will change. The bleed, the standard bleed is 0.125. And again, because that link is active, they all change when I hit the tab key. Slug is no longer used. It's from previous typography setup, so we don't need that. Let's check everything, make sure it's good. And it is. So let's hit create. Now let's construct the separate areas. I use color blocks for each area to help me visualize everything. And since I generally present 2 or more designs to my clients, I use the master page area for constructing the separate pieces. Anything done on the master page will be displayed on their associated document pages. So let's open the Pages panel. And upstairs here, let's navigate to the A master. That's the master page area. This thing moves. Anything underneath this line is a regular document page. We'll select the rectangle frame tool right over here. It's the one with the X in it, rectangle frame tool. Click anywhere, and you'll get this window. So we want the back cover to be 8 inches wide and the height to be 10 inches. And remember, we want to make sure it's in inches, and click OK. Now let's fill it with a color. If you click on the foreground, I like this lime green. Switch to your select tool and move it up here. It should align exactly with the upper left corner of the document. Now, based on my reference point, which is the upper left corner, the X and the Y coordinates will be 0, 0. You can see here the width of the frame is 8 by 10. Now that we've got the back cover, let's copy and paste that back cover to become the front cover. So you can do a copy and paste, Command C and Command V. And you want to align the upper right corner with the upper right corner of the document. And you'll see the X coordinate is now 9 because we've got 8 inches for the back cover, 1 inch for the spine. So that is positioned correctly. And one last time, we'll select the rectangle frame tool again and click. Instead of 8 inches, we'll do 1 inches for the width. Click OK. Let's fill it with a different color, maybe more of a yellow. Go back to your selection tool and position it between the 2 covers. Now, these are on the master page. You can see the document page also has them because the document page is based on the A master. But let's go back to the master page. We are using these solely as a guide. We clearly do not want them to actually print when we send this to the print vendor. So as a precaution, I go to my Layers panel I'll just rename it Guides. And if I go to that layer again, I can deselect printing that layer. Okay. Now if we open up that layer, again, you'll see it's not going to print that layer. Even if we keep the layer inside the file, you can always delete the layer once you're done, but I like to have my layers, so I just suppress the printing of it. Now, let's build the grid. The easiest way to build a grid with a single page template is to drag horizontal and vertical guides to align with the edges of the color frames you've created. So let's do that first. Let's select the back cover and drag a guide in from the left. Grab the front cover, drag another guide in. And also from the top, you want to go halfway down. So let's align that halfway down. Let's divide into fourths. You could divide it any way you like, thirds, fourths, whatever. Another little trick I have is to divide the height temporarily by 2. And then visually you see that right there. So you know you're accurate. And draw another guide there. You can multiply as well as divide. Bring this down temporarily, just while we're building the grid. There we go. And again, bring it back to the 10-inch height. Whichever way you like to do it. So we've got the horizontal guides. How about the vertical guides? Let's drag it in from the left. Even on the spine, it'll be helpful. They're just guides. You don't have to worry about them too much. Let's drag it this way to get our new halfway point. It's easier when the measurements are divisible by 2 or 3 or 4 to figure it out in your head. But when they're odd numbers, you don't want to have to worry about that. Let me move this over. You get the idea, right? What I'm doing. And visually you can see it's a nice, neat and tidy grid. Okay. Oops. Make sure it's accurate. So let's go back to our page panel and make sure everything is good there. Yep. If we were to create a new page, that would also have the color blocks as well as the grid. The second approach is the multi-page template. You use different page sizes for each section of the book cover, and we'll use this template to build a hardcover book jacket. And once again, launch InDesign and make sure your preferences are set to inches for the horizontal and vertical rulers. Once you get to the new document window, go to the Print tab, and we'll go through the same thing we did before. We'll do and book jacket. Now it's still defaulting to 8.5 by 11 because we've chosen the letter default. We will change those measurements for the front and back cover, and this time we will make it 8 by 10. And you'll see the orientation stays at portrait. Now this time we do need 2 pages to at least to start with, and we'll keep them at facing pages because they will be facing each other, literally. They'll be side by side, and we want the start number to be 2, not 1. This is true for books and magazines. Even numbered pages are always on the left, and odd numbered pages are on the right. We can leave the columns at 1, and the gutter can be 0. It really doesn't matter what number you put in there, since there's only 1 column, there's no gutter. The margins will be 1/4 inch, 0.25, and the chain link is activated, so as soon as I tab over, all of them will fill in the same way. The standard bleed is 1/8 inch. Sometimes printers will want you to use a different bleed width, maybe 1/4 inch or maybe even 1/2 inch. So you do whatever they want you to do. No need for a slug, and let's create. And you have this first spread. There's the back and front cover. Remember, the back cover is on the left and the front cover is on the right. So what we need to do is create different page sizes for the spine and the flaps, and then put them into the right location. Even though the spine and the flaps have different widths, you can position all of the pages next to one another because we have a facing page document. They will be printed as one unit on the same sheet of paper to become the book jacket. Now I'm going to show you 2 ways to create differently sized pages in InDesign. The first method is to use the Pages panel. I recommend creating the various page sizes in the Master Pages area of the Pages panel so that you can easily apply these settings to new document pages. So let's go to the Pages panel and create a new master page. We've already got a master. You'll see the 2 side by side. Let's create a new master. Doesn't matter what the prefix is, but the name itself, I'm going to change it to spine. You do have the choice of basing it on the master, but we're not going to do that. We'll leave it at none. The number of pages is 1, since there's only 1 spine. And the page size. You can choose from a pre-existing set that you may have already created, or go and create it right here. 1 inch by 10. And there's the spine. Now, we'll do the same thing for the flaps. We'll create a new master. You can leave the prefix as is. Name it flaps, based on none. The number of pages, it can be 1. They're not going to be next to each other. One will be way to the left, one will be way to the right. The width will be 2.5 inches. The height stays at 10 inches. And we click OK. So now we have the flaps. The next thing we do is drag these master pages into the correct position in the document page area. Before we do that, we need to make sure we're not allowing the document pages to shuffle. We don't want the document pages to move around, so we're deselecting that. Neither of these is allowed right now. We're not allowing the spread or the pages to shuffle. Okay? We're going to drag the spine in between. It's a little tiny. I had it just a second ago. There we go. If you have trouble positioning it in between, I had a tiny little plus sign. I don't know if you noticed. It might be easier to drag it to the right or left side. You see this bracket? It will add it over there, and then you can move things around. I don't really need that right now. I'm going to trash it. So we've got the back cover, spine, front cover. Now we need the flaps. Let's go to the C master page. For flaps, drag this to the left. You want to make sure you get that little bracket there. Okay? Do the same thing on the right. And again, the bracket. Perfect. Okay. Let's close the panel so you can see what it looks like. Now for method number 2. In this technique, we use the page tool. It's a very fun and cool technique. You actually might find it easier than the first method. Rather than creating new master pages for the spine and flaps, we'll use the existing default master and simply resize it. In the Pages panel, again, make sure you're not allowing things to shuffle. Neither of these should be selected, so let's make sure of that first. Then we'll select one of the A master pages and bring it down there. Okay. Drag the right side and place it right next to the back cover. We're going to do this 3 more times, one for the back flap, spine, front flap. So let's drag and place to the left, drag and place to the right, and then drag in position. Let's just place it over here for now. It's easier. Okay. So now we have 5 equally sized pages. They're all 8 by 10. Now we're going to use the page tool. You have in the tools panel the 2 selection tools, and then right down here is the page tool. It's actually a selection tool also, and it just selects the entire page. So let's select the page tool. And we've got the spine selected, and right upstairs here are the measurements. Let's change it to the spine width. Voila. Okay. Let's select the left flap and change it to 2.5. The right flap, 2.5. Very simple. And you can see both spreads with the 2 different techniques. They're identical. Okay. Now let's build the grid. With multiple page widths, the simplest way to build a grid is to use InDesign's Layout Create Guides feature. You want to go to the Layout menu, down to Create Guides, and you'll see you have rows and columns option. You may get this sometimes, and you'll see why in a second. Let's just change it to 3 for the moment. You'll see the division. 3 columns, 4 rows. I'm going to try to get it to be 4 and 4. And that's when it fits to the margins, which I generally like and prefer. Let's see if we can change the columns to 4 if we fit the guides to the page instead. So strangely enough, it lets you do that. You might have to play around with things a little bit. If you change your mind, let's say we click OK, and you end up changing your mind for some reason, you can go back to Layout, Create Guides, and you can remove the previous ruler guides if you want, okay, and start fresh, or not. I'm going to leave them alone. Once the pages and the guides are in place for either of these single page or multi-page techniques, you can begin the book design on the regular document pages. You don't have to go through all the steps for each new cover template. You can simply duplicate the spread that you've already created, select all the pages in the spread, and then go to Layout, Duplicate Spread. So let me show you how to do that. I'll create all of these, select all of these pages, and go to Layout, under Pages, and duplicate the spread. It puts an exact duplicate at the end of the document. You won't have the guides though, so that's the only negative, but otherwise you'll be able to design to your heart's content. I hope this tutorial was useful for you. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. Questions, certainly. Love to hear them. Leave a note in the comments, and have a great day. Thanks very much.